All right. Good
Okay.
evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for a community conversation on voting. With us today, we've got some panelists. We have Keyshon Cooks from the Council of Neighbors and Organizations, Shelly Roehrs from the League of Women Voters, and Joy Garscadden from the Citizens Project. Sorry, Joy. Let's take a moment for you all to introduce yourselves and your organization. So Keyshon, let's start with you.
My name is Keyshon Cooks. I'm the community coordinator for CONO. CONO's real message and mission is to just empower neighborhoods and do a lot of civic engagement and involve education and just teach people how to advocate for their communities, identify leaders in their communities and give them the tools and show them the resources that we have in this city to help these neighborhoods thrive and just get them some more leadership and teach them how the different components of the city work together so that they can help them be better advocates for their neighborhoods.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a great message. Thanks for being here. And Joy?
Hi, I'm Joy Garscadden with Citizens Project. Our organization has been in the Pikes Peak region for almost 30 years, I think 28. We promote diversity, equity, separation of church and state, but all of that falls, none of that happens without civic engagement. So we are currently in a large nonpartisan get out the vote effort. So this fits perfectly with what we're doing. And actually I need to get with Keyshon offline sometime because I'm already working with the League of Women Voters. So.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. And Shelly.
Yes, ma'am. So the League of Women Voters, they've been around since 1938 here in Colorado. So we've been around for a while, and we are a nonpartisan group. Our two main missions really deal with education regarding voter registration and voting and when to vote, and because we have more than just the presidential election. And then the other part is advocacy, and that's advocacy of certain issues that the League feels are important to our mission, really revolved around the environment, air quality, water availability, those types of things. So we've got kind of two parts. One of our main missions, obviously, a lot of people know is for voter registration, but we do a lot of voter education, and we try to kind of, I guess, there's a lot of incorrect information out there regarding voter registration. And so that's probably, I would say 50 to 60% of our time is really spent around just educating the voters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll introduce what our community conversation, our whole idea is about, and then we'll work through some questions. If you have comments on anything as we go along, just feel free to unmute, interrupt me, say what you need to. So as the 2020 election season progresses, countless voices clamor for our attention, our donations, our time, and our votes. It can be difficult to get accurate information about the voting process. In this conversation, we'll talk about the voting process and why voting matters. And Community Conversations at the Pikes Peak Library District is a new series of monthly events that invites the public to discuss current events and issues impacting the Pikes Peak region. We want to promote civil dialogue and greater understanding of different perspectives. And then as things change with COVID-19, now we're kind of going online, and we've done a few in these online environment. And I want to thank Keyshon one more time. This conversation is actually in partnership with CONO. So thank you so much for helping us out and being a panelist. Now I want to start with, can one of you share information on the voter registration process in Colorado? And Shelly, let's start with you.
So yes, ma'am, voter registration, there are certain things that voters have to be qualified, right? You have to be a citizen of the United States, a resident of Colorado for at least 22 days before you register to vote. You must be at least 16 years old, but you cannot vote until you're 18. So there's a little bit of a nuance here in the state of Colorado. If you are 17 and at the primary, and you are going to be 18 before the general election, you can actually vote in the primary. So that's a little different. You have to provide a Colorado driver's license, Colorado ID, or present one of the acceptable forms, and there's a whole bunch of acceptable forms. Your military ID is one of those, your passport, so on and so forth, and we'll get into where you can find out what those are in a bit. But you are not currently serving a sentence for a felony, but parolees are eligible to register to vote. So that's kind of one of those voter suppression things that we find people give misinformation about, specifically parolees in the state of Colorado. They are eligible to register to vote. So voter qualifications and voter registration, that specifically are the qualifications. And you can register up to 22 days prior to an election here in Colorado. You can register by mail. You can register through a driver's license facility or voter registration drive, which is one of those things that I think all of us actually do, our voter registration drives. So that's basically the process. And it's really easy by going to govotecolorado.gov. And that's one of those online versions. Colorado makes it extremely easy. But govotecolorado.gov is the place where we send all of the people for online registration here in Colorado.
Wonderful, thank you.
Just one thing to add to that, you can register online up to that deadline, but then you can still register in person when you go to vote. So you can register all the way up to election day. So if you're not registered, those deadlines are to get a ballot mailed to you. If you're going in person, Colorado allows same-day registration.
Great information. Thanks, Joy. All right, so Colorado has mailed ballots to all registered voters since 2013 and offered mail-in ballots as an option for many years prior. I know I grew up here and I think I voted in person maybe twice. So it's really nice that we have the mail-in ballot system. Nationally, now we're seeing renewed attention on mail-in ballots. Does one of you want to start and speak about the process that Colorado has used for their mail-in ballots? And are there any concerns of voter fraud?
Speak to that a little bit. Colorado actually does a really good job here because we've been doing it for so long and we've had the opportunity to work some of the kinks out. The ballots are all numbered, and even if by some weird chance, like you got a mailed ballot and then you also went and went to a voter registration site and said, I don't know if I voted or not, can I vote? Can I get another ballot? Only one of those is getting counted, and it's usually first in the door. So if your mail-in ballot has already been counted, by the time you show up at a voter service center, they'll tell you, we already got a ballot from you. We can't issue you another one. You can ask for a provisional in some cases, but they will know, they will have relatively up-to-date information about who has already voted. So that's one thing that's, the fact that everybody's ballot is numbered and they are only counting that number once. We also have really good use of technology. Ballot tracks is new this year. I got my text telling me my ballot was mailed. And you can go on the county website and on the Secretary of State and see, you can check your voter registration and see if your ballot's being mailed to you or if you need to do something. So yeah, we do a pretty decent job here in Colorado, and the ballot boxes that we have, hopefully we won't have the problems like they're having in California with random boxes showing up that are not actually official. That I worry about more than something happening within the process as it currently stands. You're still muted.
Thank you. Keyshon or Shelly, anything to add to that?
I know that votes count for like everything that you answer. So like, even if you don't answer certain things, the things you do answer will still count towards voting. You can request ballots, like if you make a mistake or if you just didn't receive it. Also, that's about it. Yeah, that's all I have to add. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. All right. And can one of you speak to any other voting options that Colorado has besides mail-in voting?
Well,
voting
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, voting in person. That's actually what I did when I first voted 4 years ago for the first time. I didn't really know like how like the mailing ballots worked or things like that. So when I was in college, I went to CSU in Fort Collins, and we just were able to do that in our student center. And I was able to just go in the student center, fill out the ballot, and then submit it in there.
Nice, thank you. Shelly or Joy, I think one of you, yeah,
Yes,
go ahead, Shelly.
Of course, you've got, besides the mail-in vote and obviously, like Keyshon said, in-person voting, you can also drop it off at one of the, I think there are 35 voter service drop-off boxes, plus those voter service centers. There are many places to drop those ballots off, so you can also drop them off in person.
And not all of those ballot boxes are open yet. So like today I was doing voter registration at Sand Creek Library, and at least 10 people came up with their completed ballots and said, there's usually a box here. Why isn't there a box here? Well, it opens in 2 weeks, but you can go down the street to Leon Young or to the DMV. So to find out the most up-to-date information about which ones have been placed and are open, you can go to epcvotes.com. And that's, let me verify that it's .com and not .gov. I think it's .com. You would think I would have that memorized.
Voter service and polling centers are all open on October 19th. That's
Yes.
when all of them are open. So as of right now, again, we're just kind of talking, you know, as you can only go and mail it in or go in person in those instances. And then all of those polling centers and voter service stations are open as of October 19th.
Awesome, thank you.
And it is epcvotes.com, Joy.
Yeah, I just checked too. I was like, oh, I don't want to send people to the wrong place.
Right.
Well, the
Yes.
yeah, it's like dmv.com or whatever. You know, you get to almost the right thing, but it's not the
Mhm.
right thing. Yeah.
And actually, I mean, our county elections department, I used to work as an election judge before I started working for a nonprofit that does all this also stuff on election day. Our county elections department really does have this worked out. I mean, they've got a lot of safeguards in place. I don't worry about, again, I don't worry about them. I don't worry about anything within the official process. I don't worry about duplicate ballots or ballots getting lost once they're in the official boxes and in the hands of the county. You know, the county does a good job.
Great. They're an award-winning county. I think the elections department won an award. Yeah.
Very good.
So in 2016, although Colorado and the US saw record voter turnout, there were still roughly 100 million Americans who did not vote in that election. Often turnout has been lower among young people and people of color. So what are some of the reasons that you all hear for why people don't vote? And then what do you see being done to address those reasons or to encourage more participation?
So I'll go, I guess.
Okay.
So I think that you're seeing a lot more commercials with regards to celebrities and people who are influencers, what I would consider influencers, promoting voting. So that is helpful. I don't necessarily know if it's going to actually increase numbers, but it is helpful. The other thing is, I heard from Chuck Broerman, our county clerk and recorder. He believes that it's up to the candidate. We need candidates that are willing to, you know, that are drawing people and people are interested in voting for. So that's a big draw. Is like, you know, in 2016, a lot of people would say, well, I didn't want to vote for one candidate or the other. I'm not going to vote at all. And in that instance, right, it's for us as the League of Women Voters, we don't care who you vote for. We really don't. You just have to pick one. That's probably, even if it's a third party candidate for us, right? So in that instance, it's difficult for us to say, gosh, you didn't have any candidate on the ballot. So I kind of disagree with that. You got to have a candidate on the ballot that you're just all gung-ho for. I think it's an education thing. I really do. It's also a matter of personal responsibility. I view that as a sacred thing. The person next to me might be flippant about it and be like, you know what, my vote doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I don't care. So I think from an education perspective, that is for us as a league that we take on to say, hey, you know, your vote does matter. Even if it's just one vote, it will always matter in every single election. So I think for us, it's an education thing.
And to add to that, I know like just some of the barriers would be like 21 million Americans like have no valid ID. So, and you need an ID to go vote. or register and stuff like that. They may not have transportation to places to drop off their ballots. They may have a lack of information or just education, just like Shelly said. Also, elections are on Tuesdays, and I know a lot of people like sometimes wait till the last minute, and then like they can't get off of work on that Tuesday, and they like need the money more than they need to go vote. Also, representatives don't align with their beliefs or their values, like Shelly was saying, and also some of them just feel like their vote just doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I hear the most. My vote doesn't matter. You know, my vote doesn't count. Or I hear, well, all the politicians are corrupt anyway. And I tell people, if you want a politician that agrees with your point of view absolutely 100% of the time, run for office, because that's the only way you're going to get it. In the meantime, find somebody that you can agree with on most or some things, and recognize that all the way down the ballot, I mean, there are judicial seats on this ballot. Those people have people's lives in their hands every day. You want to know that these people are qualified and that they've been reviewed as meeting standards and belonging where they are. It's a huge section on the ballot. There are ballot initiatives. I mean, we have some really important ones coming up on this ballot. The abortion rights one, the citizenship language. I personally find the gray wolf one important. You know, if you have the opportunity to talk to somebody and try to find out like what's important to them, you might be able to get in with, oh, well, did you know that there's something that impacts that on the ballot this time? Or you're voting for the people to go to the state legislature who will be able to fix that or make a change to that.
And Heidi, I kind of want to reiterate something that Keyshon said, if we could. A few of the things that he mentioned, right, is, you know, people who go on election day and they're in line for 3 or 4 hours and, you know, they can't stay in line for that long. They got to go back to work or whatever. Those things, you know, closing locations, and this is not, maybe not in Colorado, but across the country, right? There have been other places that have been closed that are polling locations. And that is a type of voter suppression, that the long lines on on voting day, on election day, and even at, you know, if I go down to the Garden of the Gods, if I've got to wait for 2 hours, that is not a good way to vote, because not everybody can stand in line for 2 hours. A mom with a newborn baby, someone who's got to be at work or who's on their lunch hour and literally taking the time to go down there. So those are kind of things that we have to work out as from the, and I think the mail-in ballots have hopefully solved some of that, but there is still a lot of long lines and some types of voter suppression that we do see out there. So I consider the things that Keyshon mentioned some types of voter suppression.
Yeah, they are. I mean, in 16, I was a poll watcher at one of the Southeast locations, and I did not get off my shift until 9 p.m. that night, because that was how long it took to get everybody that was in the line that was out the door. Keep in mind, it's 40 degrees because it's November in Colorado. People had come straight from work. People had picked up their kids and come straight to go vote. Like, they weren't dressed to stand out in weather. So at 9 o'clock, we finally got everybody in the door and guaranteed that their vote would count. I know the county has done a lot to work that stuff out, and they're promoting early voting and getting your ballot in as soon as possible. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, it works. But yeah, putting anytime there's barriers to voting that can be easily mitigated, that does feel like voter suppression to me too.
Thank you. And Keyshon, I want to touch back on something that you said earlier. You said the first time you voted was at on your college campus. Can you just speak to a little bit about how your college was able to involve students on the campus or get the word out to them about voting?
I mean, I know they like drew up with chalk on sidewalks, by the student center. You get passed out flyers like when you're walking to the student center, there's people outside, there's booths outside trying to get everybody to vote and stuff like that. You'll talk about it in some classes probably, just because it's like something that only happens every 4 years. So that's something that the professors will talk to you about. They won't tell you like who to vote for, like how to vote and stuff like that, but they'll just make it aware that we had the resources to be able to vote here on campus. So it made it a lot easier for all of us.
So Keyshon, were you registered up at CSU when you voted up there?
Yes, I was. They had
Okay, so
places
you
where
had to
could
switch.
register. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. I just love hearing about that involvement with, you know, the school and the campus trying to get, you know, students involved. That's really awesome. All right, so the November election that we're coming up, and Joy touched on this a little bit. It's not just a presidential election. There are state and local races and initiatives. There's judges on the ballot. What are some resources that people can use to help better understand the current election issues?
I think some things could be like forums like this, just joining a forum like this, or just watching something to get a little more education on the things that you're learning, or the things that you need to learn in order to vote like fully in the right way and like understand what's on your ballot. Because I remember when I was in college, like I walked in, I looked at the ballot and I was like, oh wow, there's more than just like presidential candidates on here. Like I didn't know what any of the ballot measures were. I didn't know any of the other like representatives or anything like that. So like I really just like voted for the president, and then I was like, I didn't know what the rest of the stuff meant. So I was like, it's just really good to just research online if you can. If you just have a little bit of spare time, just research or talk to some of your professors about like ballot measures, or reach out to parents about ballot measures, guardians, teachers that you trust in, just pretty much anyone who you think would know things about that stuff. If you feel like it's too much to like do on your own, if you won't understand it on your own, just kind of reach out and see like what types of people you have in your life that would be willing to help you, or who can help you.
I think Shelly can speak to this.
So there are lots of things, Keyshon, and this is probably one of the hardest things that I think we find from trying to educate people on, because, you know, young people get information a different way than I get information, than the way my mother gets information. So the state, however, has given you this amazing booklet, this blue book. This is basically, oh gosh, I don't know how many pages are in this.
It's like 90 pages this time, isn't it?
It's a lot. It's over 90 pages with the judges in the back. So the blue book is the number one thing that I go to as a League of Women Voters member. And every single, if you got a ballot, you got a blue book. Okay. So that is probably number one. Number two, I'm going to promote the League here, vote411.org. That is the League's portal. It's basically candidates and issues. If we do not put the information in there, those people put, whether they're opposed or those who are for it, they put all of that information. We just put it in one little happy little place. So that's vote411.org. So basically the same information that's in the blue book is in that vote411.org in just a little happy little app. The other one, knowyourjudge.com, right? Like Joy mentioned, that's a big portion of your ballot is judges. And, you know, for some people, it's interesting to have a judge. If you're, you know, facing a judge and you may have voted for him, you know, it's a different dichotomy to be able to vote for those things. And you want to be able to know who you're voting for and who would advocate for things that you are a positive or a negative. So vote411.org, that blue book, knowyourjudge.com. Those are the main places that I go from all of my information.
Well, and Vote 411 is pretty slick because you put in your actual location and it pulls up like, here are the things that are going to be there for you. So, I mean, it's a pretty cool tool. And I learned something tonight. I didn't know knowyourjudge.com. I'm going to go look at that. Thank you very much. So in addition to all of the work that the League does, Citizens Project also does a lot of voter education. On our website, citizensproject.org, you can find, we send out a survey to all of the candidates for state house, rep, so reps and senate, local races. We don't have city council this year, but county commission. So we sent surveys out to all of them. They all get the same questions. They all have the same, you know, word counts cut off, and we just put all of their answers together in the same place. And this is a product that we produce in conjunction with the League. And then this year, we also had the opportunity to do Zoom forums. So where in the past we were like, oh, we have to pick like the races that are going to be the most important and the most impactful, we're able to say it's Zoom. We've got nothing but time. So we invited all of the candidates to come on and get interviewed. So Julie Ott from the League of Women Voters and I spent 6, almost 7 hours recording videos, asking candidates these questions. And, you know, some of them, I mean, they're all interesting, but some are rather eye-opening, as it were, depending on your stance on things. And I highly recommend finding out your House and Senate districts, and for everybody, and taking a look at those videos that we recorded. And then it also does say something when a candidate declines to participate in voter education, particularly from organizations like the League has been around for I forget what your year was. You're coming up on 90 locally?
90 locally, I believe. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you guys, yes. They've been around for a while. Citizens Project is coming up on 30 in 2 years. So I think we're at 28, yeah. You know, and we're both nonpartisan organizations. We don't tell anybody how to vote. We will take positions on stands that align, on ballot issues that align with our core mission. So if something directly impacts diversity and equity and separation of church and state, Citizens Project will take a stand on it. And that's published on our voter guide as well. So yeah, Citizens Project, vote 411, and then just logistical information, you can, again, epcvotes.com or govotecolorado.com.
Great, thank you. And I want to touch on something we mentioned just a little bit ago. You know, if you're a first-time voter, you get that ballot and you are overwhelmed. How can we better educate first-time voters or reach out to them and make sure that they get the information and education that they need, how to fill out a ballot, here's what's going to be on the ballot, things like that?
Actually, I was registering voters today and the library had a really good pamphlet for first-time voters. I should have taken one. But yeah, it's got a lot of that information. I think one thing that people need to realize is that they don't have to vote each race before turning their ballot in. If there is something that you just cannot make up your mind about, or it is just, you're like, I don't understand this and I don't want to get it wrong, you can skip a race. If for whatever reason something just truly doesn't matter to you, although that's not a really good excuse, you can skip that race. But all the rest of the things you vote will be counted. So letting people know, like, this is how this goes, you know, and that everything all the way down is important. If it's on your ballot, it's for your neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Keyshon or Shelly, anything to add?
Yeah, I just think it would be like really beneficial to know like just what types of things will be on balance. Like maybe show maybe even like middle school students, high school students what a ballot actually looks like, or just show like a lot of the first time voters what a ballot actually looks like. And I think that'll really help a lot, because I honestly thought it was just going to be like the presidential candidates and that's it, because people pay so much attention to like the executive branch in the government, and not too much to the judicial and the legislative. And those are the ones who like affect our communities the most. And we don't really know about them, and we don't know that we have candidates in the race for that. And like the city like works for us and stuff like that. So we don't really get taught those types of things. We're really focusing on like executive branch and just the president's, like when we learn these types of things in like school and stuff like that. So that's really just the only thing I expected on there, and not really anything about like legislative and judicial branches.
You know who else is really important locally that I see these races get ignored all the time?
Sheriff?
School board.
School board.
Yeah.
People do not realize the impact that school boards have in their communities. You know, if you have strong feelings about science-based sex ed, per se, or evolution change, school board has a lot to say about that in your neighborhoods. If you have feelings about celebrating Columbus Day or whitewashing of history, school board. But most people just absolutely are like, oh, we have 10 candidates for the school board? How many seats are open? I have no idea. And because it's a nonpartisan race, it ends up being that whoever spends the most money to get their name in front of people, you know, who has 50 signs out in your neighborhood versus that one person that has one sign, that's whose name is recognized. And I wish there was a better way to do that. But yeah, local races really matter, and they make a lot of difference in your everyday life.
Well, and your local races are only about 25% turnout, if we're lucky. So Keyshon, Heidi, I'm going to go back to the question of, you know, how do we educate more people about the things that are on the ballot? And he mentioned, Keyshon, you know, getting them younger, and that's, you know, the league does go to high schools. Mm-hmm. We do show them ballots, but we're not, I don't know if that's necessarily effective, because you yourself said it, right? Everybody still thinks it's just the president. It's just, or the senator. Those are the top two. And what do you do for, and another one that's important besides school board is the sheriff.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you don't vote for that sheriff, I'll tell you, that's probably one of the most important things that I've ever voted for in some cases. So there are, and those are, again, the lowest percentage of turnout for voters. Because
and the DA.
I'm sorry, and the what?
The DA.
Oh, yeah, right. And the DA. Amen. So in those instances, the education part, because those aren't on the ballot right now, right? Those will be on another off election year when there is no press. It's not in the news every 5 seconds. It's not on your TV screen. So how do we hit those voters? And the main thing is, I think, is we have to go to them. That's what we are finding with the league. You have to be on the radio. You have to be in the newspaper. You have to be on these apps. You have to be in the schools. You have to be in the places like at the Be the Change 719 org, in the parks where people are meeting, in the laundromat. I have to talk to people and wear my League of Women Voter button and say, you know, did you, you know, ask me about voting? And it almost has to be in your face in order for people to, I think, actually get it. And that's probably what we're finding as a league, is we have to go to them. We can't be continuing to ask them to come to us.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think like what you said with like going into the apps, I think that's really important, because like a lot of us, people in the younger generations, are like always on our phones. Like I've seen like voter registration like on my Snapchat, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, phone games that I have, like everything. And one day I was just like, okay, let me just check and see like if my voter registration is updated and stuff like that, because I just kept seeing it everywhere. So I'm like, okay, let me just make sure that I actually go do this and actually go check, because I'm just tired of seeing like the same thing over and over again. So just let me make sure that I have this lined up.
Well, and I don't know how to educate on the importance of primaries. You know, primary elections are super confusing because we have both a primary and a caucus, and some things are on a primary ballot, but then there's a second primary in June, and then there's a caucus in between them. mean,
Yeah, then you're talking partisan though. That is all partisan voting for
those,
us,
yes, those are. But
right?
in the case of this year, you know, there's not even there's only one candidate for DA. He's going to win.
Yeah.
So
we touched on this just a little bit, and I think that, you know, getting out there, like Shelly was saying, and Keyshon, how do you do that in COVID-19? Oh, you push it out on the apps, you know, it's all over social media, things like that. So I think that's really cool. So why is voting so important? I'd like to get an answer from each of you. We'll go ahead and start with Shelly. So why is voting so important to you?
Being a veteran myself, it's a sacred thing for me. There are a lot of people who fought for that. It's the one thing that is mine, and no one can tell me how to do it. No one can tell me how to vote. So it is personally all mine. And that's why I think it's a personal responsibility. I definitely see it as it is something that we should be doing, and you should be doing it as often as you have the chance. And that means in every single election, primaries, city council races, school board, your homeowners association, if you have one. I mean, it literally goes down to the homeowners association at your local level. So that's why it's important for me.
Awesome, thank you. And Joy?
as also a veteran, I pull out the old line, you know, I wrote the check up to and including my life for the country. You know, after that commitment, filling out a piece of paper every, you know, couple of years, or here in Colorado Springs, we have them just about every year. Yes, we do have them every year because city council is on the off years. That's nothing. That is the least I can do at this point in my life to ensure that democracy might stand for another day in whatever form we currently have it. And getting my kids and my neighbors to vote, it's the least I can do. Every other right we have is based on the right to vote. If we can't have a voice in this, we lose our say in everything else.
Thank you. And Keyshon?
Yeah, I think it's really important because of the voice. A lot of us want to see change, and this is one way that we can kind of make sure that it happens. So if we can get everybody on board to like understand like why local and like state elections are really just as important as the presidential elections, I think it's just really important to me because a lot of us want to see change, and this is a way that we can see change, and this is like in our control. And like just like Shelly and Joy were saying, it can't be taken from us. Like this is something that is ours. So when we have this opportunity to vote, like we should use it, because this is one way where we can get a say in what we want to see change, or like just change our communities the way we would like to see them change.
Wonderful, thank you. I've got one more question for you all, and we do have someone attending, so we'll reach out to and see if any of our audience members have any questions. You know, a lot in the news has been that a lot of the poll workers are at risk, and so we're seeing a poll worker shortage. What are some ways that we can get the community involved, and what are some opportunities that you know of that people can volunteer or get involved with the election process?
Well, Chuck Browerman, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, right? He is needing those people, those judges. Wear your mask, bring your hand sanitizer, don't volunteer and don't work if obviously you're showing COVID symptoms. I mean, it's common sense in those aspects. I think you can still work and do all of those things. We're still attending events. We are taking all of those precautions, 6-foot social distancing, as well as the masks and all of those types of precautions. So I think you can still manage your day-to-day life as long as you take necessary precautions.
And Keyshon or Joy, any opportunities that you know of for people to get involved or volunteer?
You want to go first, Keyshon?
I'm not really sure of too many opportunities, so I would like to hear. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to monopolize things. So yes, there's election judges. There's also poll watchers, but that you have to be affiliated with an organization, either a party or a ballot issue organization. or a candidate to get in as an official poll watcher. I know there's been some discussion about people being encouraged to just show up to the polls and stay there and watch people. That's actually not okay. But to do it the right way, you can get trained and signed up as an election watcher. You just got to find an organization that is organizing those people. In the meantime, before election day, before the voter service centers open, you can sign up with an organization like Citizens Project. We are ramping up text banking beginning next week. And then the last few days before the election, we're going to be hitting really hard on phone banking, just calling people going, it's too late, don't mail it, please go drop it off. You know, and I know text banking and phone banking, everybody hates doing it. I get it. You don't want to get hung up on, you don't want to get the texts telling you where to go. But when you get the ones where it's like, yeah, I wanted to do this, but I don't know where to take it. Or, you know, my cousin's a felon, but he's done serving. Can he vote? Yes, when you can help people get to that place where they can get their vote cast, totally worth all the hangups and no answers. And, you know, you really do get to connect with people. So they're kind of nice to do. So yeah, those are election judges, poll watchers, text banking and phone banking, and we can hook you up with the text banking and phone banking if you want to join us.
Wonderful, thank you. And I will reach out to our audience member and see if they have any questions for you all. And you can go ahead and type them in the chat. In the meantime, we do have a slide here of some resources that we've compiled at the library. We have a whole voting resources page. You can get to it just from our website. There's how is COVID-19 affecting voting, and then some Colorado ballot initiative information, and then the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder voting page, and then just Vote Colorado. And we have all these links up on our voting resources page that you can get to just from the library.
And if someone is looking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
If somebody's looking for that El Paso County, because that is such a long URL that they have, epcvotes.com goes straight to that same page that you have written right there. So a little bit easier to get to.
Awesome, thank you. I don't see any questions coming through. So I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists, Keyshon, Joy, and Shelly. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for informing people about voting rules, regulations, and everything. And election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. So thank you all for joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you for voting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.